Hello there, and welcome back to Villa Kino, where we're going to be talking about the most recent episode of The Mandalorian while we play some Star Wars The Old Republic.
Hey everybody, good to be back and have you on board.
That was an exciting episode of The Mandalorian, a particularly long episode. I was intrigued when it went live at the earlier time tonight and saw that it was pretty much an hour long, which is a bit of a surprise. They're not usually that long, but so we've got lots to get through. Took lots of notes, so I guess we'll get a few things out of the way and then jump straight into it.
Yeah, very different feel to that episode. I think the writers started with a bit of paper, and when they're planning it, they said we'll answer a couple of questions and we'll pose a couple of dozen more.
Yeah. So we thought, given the flavour of tonight's episode, we will be talking all about spoilers. We've always put it in the title, so we're going to be talking about the most recent episode of The Mandalorian that just aired. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. So from now on, we'll be talking about the spoilers. So, of course, this episode was centered on former Imperials. So we thought that we would play some Imperials here in SWTOR tonight. I am playing Natherys, my operative.
And Volzang is my sniper. I'm wearing Imperial gear, so I'm looking very Imperial. A bit more Imperial than you are, maybe.
Yeah.
You're undercover.
I can swap my outfit, actually.
Don't have to swap.
I can look a little bit more tactical.
What's your backstory for this girl?
She's all about the Rat Ghoul. So for SWTOR players, you'll know the Rat Ghoul event. It's all about sort of toxins and poisons and people turning into basically nasty zombie-esque type monsters.
She's a poisons expert, is she?
Yes. She uses all the sort of toxic blast, corrosive assault. She's got noxious knives, toxic haze. She's all about poison. So, yeah, I'll run around in this is my alternate outfit, which is stuff that she wears from the Rat Ghoul event, Thorn Dark Vector outfit with a event outbreak response rifle. So we'll have some fun. And I've got an Agnaut companion there with me. So I guess we'll get started. Just doing the very quick quest that we can do in this room, then we'll head out. We are on the Black Hole, which is a location on Corellia.
Yeah. So we might get a little bit separated when we do this one, but won't take us long. We'll try and talk while we run through.
Yeah.
So the episode with a very different feel. A couple of times I've asked the question, I wonder what happened to Dr. Pershing, and I don't think we necessarily verbalized it, but I did wonder what might have happened to Eddie O'Brien's character. She's the Imperial Communications Officer from Moff Gideon's light cruiser, Imperial cruiser.
Yeah.
So the two of them, I mean, we obviously started off in Mandalorian scenes, Bo-Katan and Din Djarin, but the episode was clearly dominated by Pershing and the Imperial comms officer who now has a name.
Elia Kane.
Cool.
Because they have a moment where I thought it was interesting that they were sort of using sort of given numbers, not TKIDs, just sort of given numbers as part of the amnesty program. Yeah. So we're finding that the New Republic is obviously taking in, former Imperials and giving them sort of a reprogramming or deprogramming, depending on which side of the fence that you'd sort of lie on.
As
there.
Well as residents and sort of general support and facilities,
Yeah.
All right, I'm done down here.
Cool. Yeah, I am too. Okay, so we'll head up. So the Imperials are not where we start off, but they did take up the bulk of the episode. It was kind of split into 3 segments. First segment, which I thought was interesting, started exactly where the last episode finished, so you can run those together, where Bo-Katan has rescued Dinjarin from the living waters. And they're right at the water's edge, and we sort of start with Din sort of regaining consciousness, waking up.
Yeah, coughing into his helmet, and it made me think coughing in your helmet's not great, but I suppose it's not as bad as sneezing in your helmet.
Yeah. But yeah, so he is sort of like excited that he has been redeemed. He has entered into the living waters, and with her assistance exited. And she's still sort of, reeling from seeing something alive in the water. The sort of recap at the start of the episode references, the mythosaur lair and what they had sort of talked about before. Sort of reminding the audience that that was a mythosaur she saw, but she doesn't sort of say it. Oh, did you see that thing? He is like, I am redeemed, and she basically says, yes, you are, I witnessed it. And he takes a vial of the water because he has to, I guess, provide proof, because the Mandalorians of his covert are very skeptical that you can even get to Mandalore, so he's got to have proof that he found the water. Didn't just bathe in any old water.
Yeah, so it led to a couple of interesting exchanges. I think like I say, she doesn't. She just sort of gently probes. She doesn't give away that she saw something.
She asks.
Really,
did you see anything down there alive? Yeah. And he's like, no.
No, and he didn't seem to think more of it. He didn't.
Sort of one
doesn't. Back as to what she was meaning, but that really just does leave us wondering what her game plan is.
Yeah. Maybe she's doubting herself. Is that sort of information that she thinks might be useful?
Come back and I mean, the speculation we have, or the interpretation we have, is that besting a mythosaur one way or another is going to give you a pretty solid reputation, pretty good reputation points. So if she's planning to do that herself, or if she was just genuinely unsure about what she saw, because it was a lot going on and not perfect visibility underwater.
We know from the previous episode that she certainly does have the idea of ruling again, reclaiming sort of honor, reclaiming the throne. So we don't know whether she's keeping that sort of as a secret, or she's still just sort of not sure what to make of it. Or just sort of doubting it. They've sort of believed for so long that this thing didn't exist. Sorry, the boxes have spawned, so I'm just going to run backwards.
Yes,
and then, of course, they arrived in her... I've got that speeder somewhere. They arrived in her gauntlet fighters, so they have to go back to the planet they were on. Is it... I want to say Concordia? What was the one that she was on?
No, it's I forget the exact name. It's something along something along the lines of Calican.
Yeah.
It's another planet in the Mandalore system. The next planet out, Concordia, is the moon of Mandalore. So she's the sole resident of that area and of her palace.
And as they're sort of approaching the planet, that's where we get TIE fighters.
Yeah, things really dialed up here. I mean, it was just full-on action from this point. It was quite high pressure.
What is that speeder called? Sorry, I'm just going to pull mine down from...
Triumbra.
Okay, thank you. I don't have it pulled. Okay.
Let's go sweet.
Sorry, I'm just pulling it down because I really like that speeder.
So yeah, you probably got good notes about the actual sequence, but the first thing that happens is the interceptors show up, just a relative handful of them. Very cool to see them and hear them.
Yeah.
And they're obviously outnumbered. I was surprised that the Gauntlet Fighter had such fairly modest rear-facing guns.
Yeah, we see Mando kind of a man, sort of like a little mini turret, little.
Yeah, it was a stealth weapon that was stood only the turret wasn't terminal. So.
And he mentions something along with that they're harder than. Oh, I can't remember if it's later on or at this point where he's like they're harder than regular TIE.
Yeah,
TIEs.
TIE interceptors do have shields, of course, which obviously the writers included that out of necessity as well as just the coolness of interceptors, because it meant that they had to go back and get the N1 for additional air support. When they were doing that, they're talking about dropping him, and it didn't really click straight away that with the jetpack you can do a high altitude drop without having to reduce your speed.
Yeah.
Which is what they did. That's very cool.
Yeah.
I love the tension of the approaching TIE. It had some real serious video game end boss sort of feel to it. The approaching TIE and having to get into his N1 and launch it before the TIE intercepted.
Yeah. Which of course he does manage, and we get some sort of like it reminds me of certain sequences from certain movies, and I don't want to spoil those movies by saying which ones it reminds me of, but we get these cool sort of chase scenes around sort of the rocky beaches of the planet through some sort of ravines and things like that. It's really quite cool. I particularly liked seeing the sort of the fighting over the water. I think that was a neat segment. And then we get that cool move where she kind of flips her gauntlet fighter around to take out the last one, sort of using the wings in an interesting way to kind of turn hers around very quickly and take out the last remaining interceptor that was chasing her from behind. And then we get the very sort of dramatic realization. They see sort of explosions up on the hill. And she realizes that that's where her castle is. And then we see a whole bunch of TIE bombers have destroyed her Mandalorian castle, which is kind of sad. Not that it was a terribly, happy place, but it was hers. And it's not as if Mandalorians haven't already had a lot of things that belong to them bombed by Imperials. It sort of felt like another... she's just seen the the bombed ruins of Mandalore, and now she's got her new home bombed by the Imperials as well. Hey Jalari, thanks for joining us. It's definitely a cool episode. Hope you get to watch it as soon as you can. Oh, what am I doing? I just ran off. I was like, click the button and I'm off. And she compliments, she makes a comment something like, I'm not bad for an antique, about his ability in the N1. Because obviously the N1 is quite an old ship by these standards.
But it's been specced up since. So they're chasing the bombers. She's pretty
angry. She's sort of
a bit of vengeance in mind. They use Seeker missiles, both of them. Get one each, I think, from memory.
But then, sort of chasing them, they say that there is like a ton of TIEs here now.
Over a dozen,
and they kind of, I think they say something like they're not sure like why there are so many there, or like.
Yeah, that's more than you would expect from just a sort of, smaller level, low level warlord. Originally.
So before they can sort of really figure too much out, they're not going to stick around. And Din Djarin gives her sort of jump coordinates, and they sort of take off into hyperspace. And then we get the title of the episode, which was The Convert.
Which was interesting. I'm still not... I mean, I think they play games with those, obviously. It's a good way to, as to who that actually refers to. And that becomes evident through the episode. And it has multiple meanings, multiple potential meanings.
Yes. Well, yeah, certainly the tragedy episode title is the one that always sticks to my mind, that can be used to describe a couple of things that happens in that particular episode. But yeah, so now we're going to get the sequence. Like the trailer, if you had watched the trailers, included a shot of Dr. Pershing on what looked to be Coruscant. So this is the episode where that comes from. So I thought, okay, this is interesting. We're sort of jumping away from following Din Djarin. And we actually get a fairly good chunk of the episode is now following him on Coruscant.
Yeah, I'd say a good 40 minutes. I mean, the whole...
Yeah.
Break it down. And yeah, kind of got the feel that's where it was going to go once it got started.
Oh, it's a beam out there.
Oh, I've got enough to go get it. I don't know if you do. No. Ooh, ouch. Ooh, I don't have any risky.
I just managed to do it.
But this was a really interesting pacing. I mean, we talked before about what happened to Pershing, what happened to his research, where was it going without him or with him at this point in time, subsequent to Moff Gideon's capture. Still haven't got any sort of serious answer as to what's happened to Gideon himself, but
yeah.
It was quite cool to... Oh, it's very cool to see him. We have to...
You gotta use it and run before it auto-completes.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. Hang on.
Oh, Volzang. Run.
No, I'm okay.
Run.
No, I'm okay. I'm out of it.
I could see your health bar going down because I was out.
No, I had like 4 ticks left on the one that... And
okay.
I don't want to just check it off and plug in a new one.
Okay, so we open on Coruscant, looking very recognizable from what we see in the prequels. And then I'd have to double check screenshots, but my first thought was the building looked like the opera house that we see.
Yeah.
Well, where the sort of the opera that we see Palpatine and Anakin in episode 3.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it was. I'd buy that for an explanation.
And the
Yeah,
red
so he's giving
stairs. And
He's giving his presentation.
we see at this point we're sort of following an unknown person wearing sort of a blue outfit up the stairs, and then we can see a big sort of hollow projection of Pershing. Sort of, he's physically there, but he's kind of enlarged, so that everyone can see him talking about wanting to save his mother from I think it was a heart problem, as he described, and cloning tech would have saved her, and stuff like that. And then at the end, we sort of see I don't know if they're necessarily senators, but very wealthy people are sort of talking to him and sort of, congratulating him, telling him he's brave and inspirational, and we see some fun outfits and things like that. We see Mokel dressed very fancy.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you do this one, and I'm going to keep reading my notes.
Yeah, that's one aspect of this episode that I quite enjoyed. There were quite a few instances of Moncal and
classic aliens.
And Twi'leks,
Yeah.
In particular.
And
they all look like physical
yes.
appliances, with some pretty cool articulation and lip syncing. Oh, run away.
Yep. So he boards a Coruscant shuttle, which looks pretty much exactly like the one that we see in episode 1, which I thought was kind of fun, with a droid driver talking to him about places to see on Coruscant, and he arrives at the Amnesty housing. So we sort of, yes, that he is part of an amnesty program where ex-Imperials are sort of being reintegrated into the New Republic. And he, walking into the sort of the compound, he meets a few other people wearing similar sort of outfits to him. They all give sort of like numbers. I think one of them was like M40 or something like that. Like they all have numbers, not TKIDs, but they've been sort of assigned new identifiers.
I'm trying to work out what the
because
implications of that. Yeah, it's kind of nameless, a little bit impersonal, which is an interesting statement about the Republic in some ways. It's not.
I don't know if they're like trying to remove any kind of perhaps name recognition. But yeah, it seemed like an odd move to me. You think you'd be trying to get these people back to having their identity rather than the numbers that the Empire used.
So I don't know. I don't know if that, to what extent that ties into what happens later with some of the aspects of deprogramming. I think they're trying to convey the Republic as not being as squeaky clean as it optimally could be. It's certainly not on Coruscant.
Yeah.
It is using some, I don't know, not tactics per se, but certainly approaches that some might attribute to the Empire.
Yeah. So when he's talking to the other people there at the Amnesty housing, he recognizes the communications officer from Moff Gideon's ship. And I was intrigued to see her. And I have to say, just a little bit suspicious. I don't know why I wasn't suspicious of Pershing. There's something about his character that just gives you that vibe of he's a scientist and that he's genuine. But there was something about her demeanor that made me
not to mention the theme music that played when we saw her. It was just had a hint of the dark side to it.
They're all wearing these sort of blue uniforms that look very similar to sort of Imperial outfits.
Yeah, but they're also similar to the sort of New Republic
officers as well, yes.
Reduced later on. So we first saw them, I think, effectively in the Prison Break episode.
Yes, yeah, with sort of just the white sort of accessories over the top. And they talk about sort of long live the New Republic, and they toast drinks and things like that. And then they're, because I was trying to get a vibe, as I'm sure Pershing is as well, sort of these new friends, sort of acquaintances that he's met here. We can stealth. Are you a sniper?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Okay. In we go. I was just ready to mosey my way up to the roof without you.
Not my most geared guy, but he does actually have a sniping.
And they talk about things that they missed, and he's just sort of awkward because he's assuming they mean something that they miss about the Empire specifically, and one of the others sort of corrects him and says, no, just the sort of day-to-day things, and they talk about missing different types of food, rations, and he mentions, I wrote it down, yellow travel biscuits.
Yeah.
As being something from the Empire that he misses, and they sort of laugh about, how can we like those and stuff like that. And then he's in his room, sort of a quiet room. It's not like a prison cell. It's
well, he gets a free iPad.
It's plain. He's watching it. Yeah, it's sort of like a data pad. He's watching a video talking about Coruscant and teaching them about planet and stuff like that. The city planet and all that jazz. And there's sort of like a ring at his doorbell. And he goes to answer the door. There's no one there, but there is like a black sort of equipment case of sorts on his doorstep, which he picks up, takes in, and when he opens it, he discovers it's full of the Imperial yellow travel biscuits that he had just mentioned to his newfound friends that he missed. So we knew that, I guess we're a little bit suspicious that it has come from the communications officer that he recognized. Then we see him basically at work the next day. He's in an office building, he's in a cubicle, and he's got the sort of the data pads that look like the one that we see in Rogue One, which I thought was a fun nod.
The sort of data cards, yeah.
Yeah. That we see on the Republic. Well, it's not a Republic, but we see it on Leia's ship when they sort of download it. Not the big data pad that Jyn steals.
Right.
These are the smaller ones, which sort of was an interesting sort of reference back to that. And he's sort of talking to, I guess, a supervisor, co-worker about it, and he seems a little bit dismayed by not necessarily his job, but the fact that he's basically going through all these files and all of this ex-Imperial tech is just being trashed rather than being utilized or being used in a helpful way. He just doesn't want to see it all just kind of thrown away.
And you can see his point of view. It does feel a bit wasteful at that time, but I guess they are decommissioning it for components. But one way or another, it sets the wheels turning in his mind.
Yeah, that he's not completely on board with everything that the New Republic is doing. He seems at a waste, you know. He's sort of science, looking at things from a slightly different perspective. Okay, so then we see both him and the comms officer. It's sort of like this fun sort of nightlife event, sort of like a casual. I don't know how to describe it. There's sort of like a little bit of ambiance. It's at night.
It's a bit of a promenade stroll. It's kind of just an open air beer. Some of the scenes, some of the background in these scenes were 100% taken from Macquarie's artwork. And I think it was very early. It was before it was Coruscant actually had the name Coruscant. It was just referred to capital city, or those sort of conical buildings in the background were definitely Macquarie. But yeah, it was a fun little
you see sort of
role.
Like droids on stilts sort of walking through. It's a little bit of sort of crowd entertainment. And they've got like glowing sort of popsicles. That was the best way that I could describe it.
Oh yeah.
Which is fun. And she, well, they're talking. I wasn't typing fast enough when there's lots of dialogue. She talks about the fact that she had trained at the academy on Coruscant, so she has been here before.
Yeah, she said it feels mostly the same, except they've taken the cog wheels down, so I guess she's referring to the Imperial symbol, the cogs.
Yeah. And he says his research is unfinished and he doesn't think the New Republic is interested in it.
No,
so this is
right.
Yeah, you can see that his speech at the Opera House was sort of, you know, him talking about that there are legitimate reasons to pursue cloning research, not making armies. You know, he sees the more pure
medical progress, yeah.
Yeah. So you can see them sort of talking about it. And she talks to him about trusting his gut. And this is where I start to get a little bit suspicious because it feels like she's egging him on. Definitely tries to get him to sort of follow that train of thought a little bit more.
Because she straight up says, don't just blindly follow what you're told. That's what got them into the sort of imperial mess in the first place.
Yeah.
Kind of an interesting little bit of manipulation.
Yeah. Kind of playing on his guilt a little there.
Yeah, I think she's got an inkling for his desires, whereas you know, mine wants to.
Yeah, he's sort of feeling like he wants to atone for the things that he was sort of a party to as part of the Empire. He's obviously vaguely aware of what Gideon must have been doing. And I think he genuinely wants to feel useful, and he sees the use in his research. He's a believer. There was some interesting music in the background that felt... I'd have to like listen to it and compare it, and I'm sure somebody with a better... I'm just not a musically inclined person. I admire it. I can't read it or play it or anything. It sounds like very definitively a piece of John Williams' Star Wars music. I just couldn't quite place it. It might have been something from the sequels. It's kind of played in a slightly different way, which I thought was kind of fun, using that in the background. And I think you caught that there's like this big rock, and it's technically sort of the rock, like the only part of sort of Coruscant that's exposed, or the highest part of Coruscant that's exposed.
It's about 5 meters, well, both. It's about 5 meters high, and they describe it as being the highest peak on Coruscant. What's visible is only about a 5 meter protrusion, And yeah, I think they do say that it's the only piece of the ground that you can actually, still approach.
Yeah.
In proximity of, but you can't touch.
Yeah, little sort of aggressive little security droid sort of barks at him when he tries to get close to touch it, and they sort of laugh, and it's a sort of a moment you can see that he's becoming a bit more relaxed. They're playing sort of jokes, and they've been talking about things together. So it's not exactly clear how much time is elapsing in this episode.
I think it's just portraying a bonding.
Yeah,
group,
we don't really know how long he's been here. I think somewhere on the internet there is reference that there has been some period of time since that season 2 finale where Gideon was basically captured. So we assume that there is a similar amount of time. We don't know how long Pershing might have been in sort of like rehabilitation program that he references. So we don't know if this is happening at the same time as the other events, or this is sort of giving us a little bit of backstory. It's a little unclear. I would assume at the same time, but
the way they sort of show that his interviews with the amnesty droid are sort of repetitive. I kind of think that's conveying that he's having these meetings on a weekly basis. And,
something like that.
Time has just been ticking over. That was the vibe I got from.
Yes.
He's in a little bit of Groundhog Day, but
because the next scene is sort of like him turning up to this meeting with this droid where they're basically like experiencing feelings of anger or resentment and things like that. It's obviously just sort of like almost an automated psychological check-in about how he's adjusting to being in the New Republic and stuff like that, and he's just giving very stock standard responses, and at this point I think he's being truthful. He's not just sort of saying yes because he thinks that's what they and he I think this was maybe the second time. I didn't always catch every scene because he asks about his cloning research, and the droid basically looked something up and was like, nope, cloning's prohibited, so he won't be able to do it. And you can see he's just
a little bit crestfallen at that revelation.
He sort of takes it on board because the next scene is he's meeting up with the comms officer and saying that he wants to continue his research. She asks what he would need to start it. She's very much egging him on at this point. Sorry, I'm just going to go do the buttons.
Yep.
So I've got to do this.
That's a mobile laboratory workstation of some sort that he's after.
It's been a while since I've done the puzzle. Ooh, got it right. Didn't want to be doing that one again. Okay, so go back to base. So yeah, he says that she could get him a mobile lab station, that they would need to leave their zone. I wasn't sure what the wording was there.
They're basically kind of being treated like they're on parole, so they have a restricted area that they're not allowed to explore out of effectively.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going back outside so I can quick travel. Yeah, and he says it's too dangerous, and she says, something along the lines of she's willing to take the risk. She's definitely keeping that train of thought going for him. She says to sleep on it. Then we get back at his work desk. This is where he's talking about destroying the Imperial tech and talks to his superior. And says, forget he asked. And he's just kind of sitting there thinking about the fact that he's destroying all of this stuff which could be useful, could be used in what he deems a more useful way than just destroying it. And we see him open his drawer and get out I didn't mean to sell that. One of the Imperial cookies.
Mm-hmm.
that she got him. And he's thinking about it, and you can tell at this point he's made up his mind. He wants to start up his research. And then we get the same interview with that Republic droid.
Yep.
And he says something about helping the Republic, basically reassuring himself. He's like, we're here to help the Republic, right? He's obviously got it in his mind. Sorry, let's go do the Corellia. Yep. Corellia wins. That basically he's connected the dots in his mind that continuing his cloning research would help the Republic even if they don't see it yet.
Yes,
so
quite, yeah, and I think he's genuine. He's just single-minded.
Yeah.
In terms of not understanding what he can offer.
Yeah. And he goes to the comms officer to her room and says, let's go get the mobile lab station. And she says tomorrow night. Then it cuts to him basically wearing civilian clothes, disguise clothes, as it were, sort of just not very standoutish, reassuring himself in the mirror that it's the right thing to do. And then we get some really cool big outdoor shots of Coruscant. I'm just going to pick everything up here.
Yeah, I think we'll do everything here.
I'll go to Call Set Crackdown first.
Yep.
They sneak through the gate, so they don't pay. They don't buy tickets because they obviously know that they'll probably get stopped or flagged of some manner.
Well, I just don't think they have those resources. I mean, they're doing the...
Yeah, we don't know if they necessarily have money. They're sort of provided for, and yeah. I thought they might have tried to steal something to get where they needed to go. Especially when they were on the train. I thought they might have, tried to sort of pickpocket somebody to get a legitimate ticket in case they were checked. But once they're on the train, we get some sort of cool shots, that makes me very nostalgic for the Coruscant scenes in the prequels. The big city. Yeah, the big city vistas. What have I got? Sorry, I'm just reading and fighting at the same time.
As you do.
Yep. So he asked, where are we going? Something like disposing yard or decommissioning. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
And she's like, where do I think I got the biscuits? Because he's asking if she'd done it before or something like that. And she's sort of like, no, implying that, yeah, I've done this before. It's fine. You just go in, go out, get what you need. Sort of making him feel at ease about what they're doing. And then we get the sort of silver security droids going down checking tickets, which they don't have. So they're going to have to... I thought this might have turned into a bit more of an action sequence than it was. But they're basically having to sort of try to be nonchalant and walk down the train, passing from carriage to carriage, jumping over the gaps between the carriages. I don't have a yellow droid array. I have to go fight another droid. Until they get to the end of the train, we've got no further length of train to hide in.
Wondering where that was heading.
Yeah.
At the time.
So they jump off because the train, I think it was slowing down a little.
Yeah.
Because you could sort of hear the sort of PA sort of talking like they're approaching the shipyards or something to that effect, and it looks like the train is slowing down a little, so they leap off the train and land, roll, and make their way over to the shipyards and walk up to a big Star Destroyer being sort of slowly disassembled in the shipyards there, which I thought was quite cool. We kind of get this moment where he's just sort of looking at it sort of like the ruins of the Empire right in front of him. And as they walk up to it, we get this scene where they admit that they would have passed each other so many times on Gideon's ship, and that they didn't even really ever talk or introduce themselves, and they introduce themselves using their names. And this is where she says that her name is Elia Kane, and he introduces himself as Dr. Penn Pershing, a scientist. So, you know, they're bonding, becoming friends. You know, they know each other's proper names now, and sort of, you know, talking about that things are different now. They're talking about, you know, back in the Empire, you didn't really talk. You didn't sort of make friends in that way.
Yeah, it all seems pretty genuine at the time, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was like, still had my suspicions about her, but, you know, it seemed like, I was like, are the two of them gonna team up and be the sort of the sneaky people, the ex-Imperials? They're gonna, you know, be in the Republic, but kind of still doing this cloning thing on the side. And the whole episode, I'm waiting to see if there's going to be any reference to where Gideon is in all of this. But this episode is not the episode where we find that out, though he is obviously referenced a few times.
I think when they're talking with the other people on the amnesty program, they might even bring up that the only thing
there's like rumors. Yes, they talk about
it's only just speculation and nothing solid.
They don't know where he is. There's rumors about what happened to him.
Yeah, they make reference to the mind flare at that point, which is technology to do things.
It's basically like as we see later on, a little bit like electroshock therapy. But they are. Why do I always try and read my notes in the middle of fights? I don't know. They make their way through the Star Destroyer. There is power, because he seems nervous about, you know, guards or whatever, and she's like, nah, they can't steal them, so they don't really guard them. And they make their way to the lab, and he starts loading up a box of stuff, and you sort of hear a noise, like maybe something creaking, maybe something moving, and she goes to basically investigate while he continues to load up his his box of bits. And then we see what looks like maybe flashlights. So they kind of gestured to each other that they got to basically get out of there. But he's got his big box of lab bits with him. There we go. Go to Wookiee Revolt. Oh, whoops.
Watch your back.
Yep. Which is funny because my signature move is like a backstab. Yeah. Okay, Wookiee Revolt. Or like quick travel. Yeah, so when they run out of the ship, they're caught by, I don't know, if it was real world stuff, I'd say a big helicopter searchlight.
It didn't show it clearly, but it is that sort of, we've seen that vehicle before, I think, in the Clone Wars or something. Like,
okay.
Yeah.
I didn't sort of manage to catch it myself, but yeah, it was like a big searchlight.
Like a helicopter body, but with just sort of solar panels off the sides. I can't remember what it's called. Unfortunately, I'll look it up later. But yeah, they had that, and then they had also ground crew, ground officers.
And this is where it starts getting a little bit interesting, and I'm hoping they might give us a little bit more information about what's going on here in subsequent episodes, because
well, I think they have to. They've got to explain.
The guards all very quickly seem to focus on Pershing, not her. And I was like, well, wouldn't they both be like suspect? He puts the box down and puts his hands up, and they're sort of arresting him. And she picks up the box and walks behind the officers, and they don't seem to be stopping her or arresting her or anything like that. And
no, they very much seem to be expecting everything she did.
Yes. And this is when we start to get, you know, suspicions proved correct that she was perhaps had warned the Republic that he was going to try and do this and that she was going to sort of play along, or that she's like an undercover trying to find sort of like Imperial sympathizers or people that haven't quite legitimately taken to New Republic life. Let's see. And then when he's arrested, we see him sort of on a medical table in a facility with a Moncal sort of officer talking very sort of animatedly and very reassuredly about the procedure he's about to go under, and Pershing is understandably quite alarmed, and he keeps saying like that's a mind flayer, sort of like a big machine, which he and we see Elia on the other side of the glass, which I was kind of shocked to see her there, sort of at the, you know, like if you go undergoing like surgery or some sort of medical procedure, and then there's, you know, the people watching from the other side of the window, not in the operating room. Yeah, she is a very clear, safe distance.
So it's like she's painted herself to them as someone wanted to help him.
Yes.
So
she kind of references that
as a friend, as a
that she wants to stay because she's a friend and she wants to see him sort of get better. And he is essentially given electroshock therapy, so, you know, sci-fi lobotomy. Don't really see the outcome of it. And the doctor or the technician is kind of reassuring Pershing that it's like mild and you feel better straight away. Like, you know.
But and it does look like that. I mean, it's a gentle blue beam initially, and you can just see flashing pretty coloured lights underneath his visor, which he was told is what he would see.
Yeah. But after she says that she wants to stay there, you can see which no one's looking or terribly aware. She reaches down and grabs the control knob and cranks it up.
Up to 10 yet.
Yeah, which is clearly not going to be quite the gentle, pleasant therapy that he was expecting or was sort of scheduled to receive.
Yeah.
And just before that, he was basically trying to say it was a trap. She set me up. He realizes what happened. That she sort of put him up to it, pretending to be her friend. And at this point, I'm wondering what was the goal. I thought her goal was to basically get Pershing to continue his research. But basically frying him like this, the only thing I can think of was that they needed to know what it was that he needed from an Imperial lab.
Well,
because she took the box of bits off him.
It's a bit of a stretch, but I don't know if she's got a personal vendetta or if she's had instructions from Imperials.
Yeah,
it's curious.
I don't know if they're trying to find ways of wiping out what he did, so that no one else has the were they closer to the research than he thinks. Have they got another scientist on board and they just needed a bit of
in the same way that
guidance?
In Bad Batch, they're trying to control cloning in Bad Batch as well.
Yeah.
Like eradicating Topeka City and such like.
Yeah. So I'm really curious what the goal there. And I don't think she's working alone. I think she's very much working with a specific plan. I mean, we know Imperials are ambitious, but she was a communications officer. She wasn't like somebody that was giving orders. She's not sort of, you know, not a Thrawn or Gideon level sort of mastermind. We know that she's very manipulative, but I don't think she's calling the shots here. I think she's working undercover for someone. Because she still have very much, we see when we meet the other sort of ex-Imperials, they're all relaxed. They're wearing their jackets open. They look very sort of thing. And when she's with them, her hair is still very much slicked back. She still looks very much like an Imperial, apart from the change of uniform. I don't think she's sort of... I don't even know if she's gone through sort of rehabilitation or whatever, whether she somehow got Yeah, whether she got sort of snuck in, whether there's basically Imperial spies that are sort of helped get her in without having to go through the program legitimately, or whether she's just resolved enough to basically lie through the whole process in order to get in. But yeah, it left me leaving a lot of questions there. There's definitely a lot more coming. And is that the absolute end to Pershing? Is he just basically lobotomized now? Is he going to be able to survive it? Is he basically going to be like a vegetable? It'll be really interesting to see if they revisit that, or they're just going to basically go, nope, he's succumbed to a sad fate, and we follow her storyline. But with all those questions, we suddenly get she eats the biscuit at the end, which I thought was like an interesting little nod, just these sort of Imperial biscuits that he had said that he liked. And I guess in a way that's kind of shown that she's still very much in the Imperial life, you know. She's still eating the food and still doing something for the sort of the greater interests of the Empire. But then we get to the third segment, which is suddenly switching back to Din Djarin and Bo-Katan.
Yeah, that's very good. They were approaching a planet that's fairly recognisable as where the rest of the Mandalorian covert are hiding out. I don't think it was actually given a name. I think it remains.
No, because I was wondering whether he was like, oh, let's go to Tatooine because that's out of the way or something like that. But no, he's decided to go to his Mandalorian covert, and I'm like, ooh. When we land there, we see Paz Vizsla sort of coming out of the cave, essentially, where they're living. And without having recently gone back and rewatch those episodes in the Book of Boba Fett where the Armorer is sort of talking about other clans and Bo-Katan, I was really worried about how the scene was going to play out. You know, this particular clan covert do not like people that take their helmet off, and I was like,
they don't like her, but Din does reassure her when they're approaching in their respective starships that she is there as his guest, and they will respect that.
Yeah, but he does remind her to maybe not take her helmet off in front of them.
Go easier that way, yeah. Okay, technically done.
Yeah, I just wanted to take out the last ones.
And I already started to think, she technically bathed in the living waters of the mines of
Mandalore
as well. Yeah,
and
hadn't taken a helmet off since.
Yeah,
I sort of noticed that was the way the plan played out.
Okay, we'll go to the next one. So they walk in and we see more and more Mandalorians kind of like, okay, and Din's come back, the apostate, because we get a little bit of a cold sort of greeting from Paz.
Yeah,
he's like, you like not a Mandalorian, you took your helmet off, how dare you come back? And he's like, no, I'm all good, I redeemed myself. And he's like, well, we'll see about that. Because he grabbed that vial of water. And I think because we know Paz is not exactly, I don't know, friendly. He did try to take the Darksaber off Din in combat.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious to see how this would play out, especially since, let's say, most of the Mandalorians, if not all of them, are aware of who Bo-Katan is. You know, having been descended from, royal house.
Yeah, reputation's pretty wide.
Yeah, and certainly the markings on her armor, designates her from a not an opposing clan, but certainly not their own. Recognizable.
Recognizable as Night Owl. I seem to understand.
Yeah.
Clan markings.
Yeah. Because they don't seem to have a cohesive... I mean, I know that they're just sort of rebuilding. But even back on Navarro, they didn't seem to have a cohesive paint job, like Death Watch or like Night Owls and stuff like that. No. Ones where they have very sort of... But then they were trying to be hidden, so, it wasn't exactly a priority for them to all match. Probably trying not to draw attention to themselves by like having matching outfits. So yes, so Din Djarin tells Bo-Katan to keep her helmet on. Says, come no further, apostate. And he's basically like, no, you're lying. And she introduces herself, and they talk about that he's been in the living waters, and that I think he says something like, we shall see, or it's the armor that says that. But yeah, a lot of tension all around. Possibly because they know that it represents, I don't know, an achievement, and they have very strong feelings about what happened to Mandalore, and being able to bathe in the living waters would challenge that.
Well, it changes a lot of things. They've had this. They've been living rough because they didn't think Mandalore was habitable.
Yeah.
The realization that they've been misled opens doors for them, but also does sort of make them question whoever. Well. Yeah. Yeah, it almost might make them question the armorer if they've been sort of following her.
Yes.
Anyway, it certainly complicates things.
Yeah. Yeah, because we don't really know how the story of it, not being toxic and stuff like that. Somebody's in sort of instilled this belief in the Mandalorians that they can't go back. We don't know if that is Imperial propaganda, basically keep them splintered and separate and just sort of depressed that their homeworld is gone, or somebody that knows that they're
travelers, or if it's just straight out come from the armorer.
Yeah. So he claims to have bathed in the living waters and that Bo-Katan witnessed it. And they do this cool effect where I don't know what it is that she's pouring the vial of water into. Something to do with the way that she forges armor, I think.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and look at her tools and processes last week when she was making the youngling helmet, effectively.
Yeah. But it has like this cool sort of, is it green? Sort of sparkly ripple effect, which I thought was quite fun. It wasn't just like sort of mystical that there was something special. And I would only assume it has something to do with Beskar being in the water. Yeah. So there was a chemical reaction that she could see, and she's like, "Yep, he speaks the truth. This is the sort of living water from Mandalore," and says you are redeemed. And there's sort of a "this is the way" moment, but then basically asks Bo-Katan if she had removed her helmet since being in the waters, and at this point, because there was kind of like the dramatic mythosaur and then sort of getting back out, she didn't actually remove her helmet. And then I had sort of noticed that she hadn't taken her helmet off on her ship, but I hadn't really paid too much attention to it, because you have this cool action sequence of them sort of escaping the TIE fighters and her house being bombed and stuff like that. But yes, it's obviously played into that. And then sort of the demeanor of everyone around them changes. The Mandalorians all kind of come up to them and all start sort of patting them on the shoulder, sort of basically. She's like, "You're one of us. You can stay with us now because you're following the creed, and this is the way." She hasn't taken her helmet off, and it's one of those interesting ones where it feels like you can sort of read the expression, but then the helmet, so you can't actually. Got the impression that she's sort of like absorbing this. And the way that sort of everyone's walking up to her and patting her on the shoulder is sort of like a camaraderie welcome to the clan. Made me think back to the earlier episode where she seems just completely at a loss because the other Mandalorians that were her friends, quote unquote, abandoned her when she was not able to secure the Darksaber. They all left her. And here is a supposed rival Mandalorian clan that is welcoming her in. And this poses all sorts of interesting possibilities for where Mandalorians, certainly this cluster of Mandalorians, could go. She is one of them. There is a Darksaber in the mix, and she knows about the mythosaur. And then that's where it finishes. So I have no idea. Like, he's done his quest. What is the next episode going to be? I thought the whole thing of him going to Mandalore and redeeming himself was going to take a much longer arc. I mean, we've got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know where the next episode's going to go. Whether we're going to get like perhaps a little mini episode, or we're going to get into some sort of real meaty Mando stuff soon. Is she going to like go, hey, did you know there's a mythosaur there? You know, it's like just absolutely rock their world, or is she going to keep that knowledge to herself? There's going to be something more with Elia Kane. Something very suspicious going on there.
Yeah, don't want to make that. It's
like you said, it answered a whole bunch of questions, but then it just gave us a whole lot more. It's kind of like this interesting sort of mid-season pause. We've sort of wrapped up the storyline, and to be honest, Grogu didn't really have much to do at all in this episode. It was a very Grogu light, not very many even cute moments. There was a moment where they're getting like pursued by the TIE fighters, and Mando's going to drop down to get in the N1. Grogu sort of pops forward and clicks the button on the front of his little chair, and puts up sort of the armored bubble, the top shell of his pod. And we don't really, I mean, obviously because most of it's on Coruscant, not involving the Mandalorian. And then at the end, we just kind of see him sort of following. He has not taken the creed or anything like that, so his non-helmet wearing is not an issue at this point. He is just a foundling. So of course he would be welcome with the Mandalorians. So now I don't know what's going to happen. We know that there are still other Mandalorians running around. We know, Koska and Axe.
They just stopped being mercenaries,
Yeah. That sort of abandoned her. But perhaps it's going to... I don't know. Personally, I could see the fact that Mandalore is not poisoned, that you can actually breathe the air and go down to the waters, is going to be a fact that these Mandalorians can't ignore.
No,
are they going to be like, well, that would be slightly better than living in this cave, so why don't we go there?
It seemed pretty odd that they would not revisit it.
Yeah.
It means everything to them.
But I don't know where the whole show's going to go from here. It's really interesting. Not as many kind of... I guess the oh gosh surprise moment in this one was finding out that, sort of Pershing being actually sort of captured. I thought for sure she was going to basically convince him to either do the stuff in secret or say, oh, actually, how about you come with me off-world and we'll get you started. Like, sort of get him all set up. It wasn't the whole, why did they want to sort of get him all excited about doing this research only to basically fry his brain. It's very interesting. And Moff Gideon's got to get out somehow. He'll be in like a prison facility somewhere. Are we going to see her break him out? She was always very close to Gideon.
I think there's more to Gideon than meets the eye. I think he's
a very formidable foe that's very connected.
He's really an arch villain, yeah.
Yeah. He knew Din Djarin's name. He knew Cara Dune. Like in that sort of standoff on Navarra and the Cantina in that first season, he knew them all. He knew details about them. He's got history. He knows about the Darksaber. He was strong enough to wield the Darksaber competently. I mean, and we still don't know why he was very much obsessed with getting Grogu's blood.
Not a complete story anyway.
Yeah. So, a long episode with a lot to sort of go through. Do you want to do quick CZ? I gotta go out.
I don't know. We're probably okay at this point.
Okay. Sure. I gotta run out. Can I quick travel? I'm just gonna quick travel out to the Coronet Cantina because that's the only quick travel point I have.
Okay, yeah, visit Corellia much in this character.
No. She hasn't done the story here, so I haven't got any of the taxi points. Gonna go hang out in the cantina, which is just this tiny little cantina in the corner of the starport.
We'll find a better bargain. Come back anytime.
Friendly Rin is not sitting on his chair properly. I don't know if you can see that on your screen as well, or just mine.
Yes, yeah,
sitting on the back of his chair.
Nice. Commanding the room to tell a story.
Yeah. So I think that's sort of covering most of it in my sort of scattered note-taking fashion, trying to sort of follow along with all the details there. I very much liked seeing a lot of Coruscant, seeing a little bit of a glimpse as to what the New Republic would have done with all the captured Imperials. Trying to sort of, you know, rehabilitate them, integrate them.
Yeah, it's a good little bit of insight into where things are heading, because we've talked about wondering what's happening on the Imperial side, but yeah, it really does show what's happening on the ground level, but also on the sort of bureaucratic, administrative sort of space as well, in terms of the New Republic.
I don't know if I like it with the fins out or not. Very cool. But yes, I am super excited for the next episode. I get the feeling we're going to have another sort of big, exciting moment.
Yeah.
Like that Mythosaur eye. Golly, I haven't been on the internet, like, I don't deliberately go looking for spoilers and stuff, but I did see a lot about that online shortly afterwards, so I do hope people are able to watch each episode shortly after it airs, because even just the picture of the eye, you can put two and two together without actually reading too much. So hopefully that was not spoiled for people. I think that was such a cool dramatic moment. Whether or not you predicted it is one thing, actually sort of seeing it without having read a spoiler, I think
it still had a lot of impact.
Yeah, was really cool. And I can't wait to see where they go with that. I want to see it more. I want to see it clearer. And I assume out of the water. But who knows?
Yeah.
They talk about riding the Great Mythosaur, and I'm like, well, you can ride something sort of on the surface of the water, or, yeah. Very, very cool. I want to go back to Mandalore and just see where they're going to go. Like, I think everyone can get the vibe that there's going to be something about sort of restoring the honor, the sort of the pride of Mandalore as a culture and as the planet. I'm just curious to see how the showrunners are going to take us on their journey to that point. Will it happen in this series, this season, or because we know that Favreau has written season 4? So it's potential that there is going to be like a few other kind of adventures before we build up to that in the next season, or is it going to be because Din legitimately has the Darksaber?
Yeah.
But he doesn't seem to be that interested in leading, so it's going to be really interesting how this all plays up. And we've still got the armor, we've still got Paz Vizsla, got Bo-Katan in the mix, and who knows what other new characters they might throw at us, or a character we are familiar with that they can throw in at us and go, oh my gosh, this is a returning character that you didn't see coming. I mean, goodness knows, we know that from the episode in season 2 that Ahsoka's looking for Thrawn. So Thrawn could randomly show up somehow. Is Thrawn the one that wants to do cloning? Is he working with Moff, or is Moff Gideon like reporting to him, or like who knows? We don't even know if there's like specifically a person at the top of the Empire, of the Remnant Empire at this point. We know Moff Gideon. He's Moff. He's not Grand Moff. So we don't know if there is somebody that he would be reporting to, that's sort of secretly trying to pull the fragments of the Empire together to kind of reclaim control of the galaxy in the absence of the Emperor. Because clearly somebody helps the Emperor between Return of the Jedi and the sequel trilogy.
And Return of the Emperor, yeah.
Yeah. But that's, just a lot of speculation and a lot of excited, scattered thoughts about what could possibly be coming up in the next episodes. I'm just so excited for Mando being back and having new episodes of this. And of course, Bad Batch. We haven't had the chance to watch Bad Batch. We're going to go watch that very shortly. And catch up on that.
Bring up the point where we weren't able to stream and talk about Bad Batch last week. Some real life things got in the way, but we will do that tomorrow night. Yeah. We'll cover both episodes, last week's and today's episode. We'll talk about both of those in an upcoming stream. By tomorrow night, I mean New Zealand time zone. So basically the same time frame that we've just been talking now, so about an hour earlier. Then this is completing, this is wrapping up. Yeah, so I guess we'll wrap it up there for tonight. Yep. That was a really exciting episode. Long episode. It'd be fun to have more episodes of that length. Really keen to see where on earth they're going to go with the story in the next episode. They're going to have to give us something about the Mandalorian sort of covert, because that's where Din and Bo-Katan are at the moment. Yeah, I don't know where the focus is going to be. They can obviously shift focus and park some storylines and come back to them later. Yeah. So it's very hard to predict. Yeah, you should notice some. I've been doing some pretty good mods to your. Yeah. Quite a bit. Working on there for a moment. Yeah. Well, so I guess we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for coming along, hanging out with us as we chat about this exciting episode of The Mandalorian. We'll have this episode, as well as our streams, archived on the Villa Volcano YouTube channel. And we hope to catch you next week after the next episode of The Mandalorian here on Twitch. Thank you so much for joining us, and may the Force be with you. Take it easy, everyone. We'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like, check out our other videos, and subscribe for alerts about new uploads. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.